Welcome to Chapter 8, Managing Motivation. Yes, amongst all of your responsibilities as a manager, the other thing you need to do is make sure that people are showing up every day motivated, engaged, and excited to do their job. Let's see what this chapter is going to offer. So, by the time you finish this chapter, you should be able to do these 5 things. Describe the nature of motivation and how it leads to the attainment of both intrinsic and extrinsic outcomes. Explain how needs theory of motivation helps managers determine the needs of employees and provides outcomes that satisfies them, excites them, keeps them engaged. Describe how the process theories of motivation help managers explain high and low performance. Identify the motivation lessons that managers can learn from the learning theories of motivation, and explain how managers use reward systems to increase employee motivation. Let's jump in. Important theories of motivation. So you can break down these motivation theories into 3 broad categories: needs theories, process theories, and learning theories. We're going to go through all of these theories in detail throughout the chapter, but ensure that you take time to open that textbook and actually read it, because you're not going to grasp the complexity of Maslow's hierarchy of needs or Adams' equity theory or the social learning theory simply by going through this PowerPoint presentation. Well, listen, maybe you are. And if you are, that's amazing. But for the majority of people, you're going to need to spend some time going through these theories in a little bit more detail. So, what is motivation? The nature of motivation. There's a number of psychological forces that determine people's direction and behavior in organization, their commitment or effort, and how well they persist in the face of obstacles. There's 3 different types of motivated behavior. The first one is intrinsic, perform for its own sake, source of motivation in performing that behavior. So intrinsic, people who are intrinsically motivated, that comes from inside. There's a picture of, it looks like a teacher here. Maybe she loves teaching because when she sees kids learning, it gives her a great feeling of satisfaction. That is defined as an intrinsic motivator. Extrinsic motivated behavior is performed to acquire material or social rewards. Some people might teach not because they love that fuzzy, warm feeling of students learning and performing well, but they need the paycheck. Maybe is it they have a mortgage and car payments and all the rest of it, and they say, listen, I don't love it, but at least it pays well, right? And then finally, pro-socially motivated behavior, and that's performed to benefit or help others. You're doing it simply because you help others. Maybe it's not always intrinsically motivating or extrinsically motivating, but you know at the end of the day, at least you are helping other people, and that can keep people going. So the nature of motivation continues. How workers are motivated depends on these 3 factors: the worker's own personal characteristics, the nature of the job, and the nature of the organization. And regardless of the source of motivation, people seek certain outputs. And an output is anything a person gets from a job, right? A paycheck, benefits, great hours. All of those are outputs someone might get from a job. The feeling of you doing something right, that's an output. Organizations hire workers to obtain inputs. Anything a person contributes, right? If you look at the picture of a classroom, the teacher shows up, they keep the kids on task, they get them passing the tests, and they move them on to the next grade. Those are the inputs. And managers use these outcomes to motivate workers to contribute to the inputs. I'll give you a couple examples because it seems a little convoluted. So here's a motivation equation. These are examples of inputs I was discussing. So inputs could be your time, effort, education, skills, knowledge, work behavior. those things contribute to your performance. What are the contributions you make in terms of efficiency, effectiveness, and attainment of goals? And then these are the outputs received by the workers or the employees, the organizational members. We pay them, we give them job security, benefits, vacation time. Maybe they have some satisfaction, a certain level of autonomy, responsibility, a feeling of accomplishment. And at the end of the day, maybe it's the pleasure of doing interesting work. Maybe that is the output. But regardless of what the inputs, performance, and outputs are, this is the basic equation. Members of the organization, employees, maybe it's volunteers, have the inputs, which leads to performance, and from there, there's an outcome received by those employees or members. So what are needs theories of motivation? So people are motivated to obtain outcomes at work to satisfy their needs. And a need is a requirement that is necessary for survival or well-being. So needs theories of motivations basically say, listen, people do things, are motivated to do things because they have needs. And if they didn't have needs, they wouldn't do them. So if you were independently rich and you had a job that was extrinsically motivated, you're doing it because you're showing up for the pay, your need is eliminated. You have no need to show up to work because, listen, you're doing it for the paycheck. And in that type of thing, your motivation would plummet, right? Needs theories, in order to motivate a person, a manager must do these things. Determine what needs the person is trying to satisfy, right? How are you supposed to motivate them if you don't know what they need? Ensure that a person receives the outcomes that help satisfy those needs when performing well. And these are the three theories outlined in this textbook that are needs theories of motivation. Maslow's hierarchy of need, Herbert's motivational hygiene theory, and McLean's need for achievement, affiliation, and power. So here's Maslow. He proposed that everyone aims to satisfy these 5 basic needs. No matter who you are, in what society or culture or where you live on the planet, everyone has these 5 basic needs. Psychological need or physiological needs, safety needs, belonging needs, esteem needs, and finally, the self-actualization needs. These needs constitute the hierarchy of needs. They're arranged of needs according to Maslow's motivating behavior. So you have your psychological or physiological needs at the bottom of the pyramid. Everyone has those. And then once you move up the pyramid, you get to self-actualization, the pinnacle. Lowest level of unmet needs is the prime motivator, that only one level of needs is motivated at a time. So he argues that you have to obtain all of your physiological needs before you can move on to your safety needs, belonging, esteem, and self-actualization needs. They go in that order, and you can't skip to the next level. You have to meet all of your physiological needs before you even think about your esteem or your self-actualization. Here is a very detailed overview. And to give you an example, I remember studying this in my psychology class in university, and I think we spent 45 minutes going through this diagram. So there's a lot to unpack here. I'm not going to spend 45 minutes going through this with you, but I will give you a brief overview. You can see on the left-hand side, we have lowest level of needs. These are the most compelling. And on the very high end, we have the highest level of needs. So the physiological needs, like I said, are basic things like food, water, shelter, and they must be met to survive. Some people go to work simply to eat, to have a place to sleep, and that's all, right? After that, you move to safety needs, the needs of security, stability, social interaction, which is belonging, esteem needs, to be respected by others, appreciated, recognized. And then finally, at the very top, when you get to the top of the pyramid, you get to your full potential as a human being. You're trying to live a life in which you fulfill your destiny, right? You obtain the highest level of performance that you were set on this planet to achieve. And then down the right-hand side, they've given you examples of how people can meet those needs. This is a classic classic model about motivation, right? People are motivated because they have these needs, and everyone does. And if all these needs were met, people might not be very motivated to show up to work. Herbert's motivational hygiene theory focuses on two factors. The first one is outcomes that lead to high motivation and job satisfaction, and the second one are outcomes that can prevent people from being dissatisfied. Also known as the two-factor theory, because people have two sets of needs. Motivator needs related to the nature of the work itself and how challenging it is, and hygiene needs related to the physical and psychological context in which the work is performed, right? Similar to Maslow's in that way that there's different types of needs that people have, but instead of breaking it down into 5 distinct needs, this model, the two-factor model, has broken it down to simply motivator needs and hygiene needs. So here is an example of some of those hygiene needs and motivator needs. So hygiene needs are supervision, company policy, relationships, working conditions, salary, relationship with peers, personal life, relationship with subordinates, status, and security. And then there's a continuum within that, right? People can be very dissatisfied or they can be completely satisfied. And then the motivator needs are things like achievement, recognition, responsibility, advancement, and growth. So you can see how it's broken down to 2 different factors, and it's a continuum. People don't necessarily check the box. Maybe they're somewhat satisfied with their salary, but not completely satisfied. Maybe they like their level of responsibility, but could have more. And then finally, McLean's need for achievement, affiliation, and power. So he argues that people have 3 needs: the need for achievement. How strong is one's desire to perform challenging tasks well and to meet personal standards for excellence? So are you hardwired to achieve? The need for affiliation. How concerned are you on an individual level about establishing and maintaining good interpersonal relationships, being liked, having people around you that you enjoy, that you get along with? So some people really want to be part of the team. That's more important than achieving your best all the time. And then finally, the need for power. How concerned an individual is about their control and influence, autonomy. Maybe some people really want a certain level of responsibility with an organization, and that's what really motivates them and gets them going. Those were the 3 needs theories. We're moving into the process theories of motivation. So what is a process theory? Explain the process by which employees' behavior can be aroused and then directed, right? What is the process of motivation? We're going to go through 3: expectancy theory, equity theory, and the goal setting theory. So, expectancy theory, Victor Vroom in the 1960s stated that motivation will be high when workers feel the following. They feel that their effort is linked to performance, performance is linked to rewards, and rewards satisfy personal goals. Very similar to the inputs, the performance, and the outputs of the needs theories, right, that we started with. 3 factors determine a person's motivation: expectancy, the perception about the extent to which the effort will result in a certain level of performance; instrumentality, the perception about the extent to which performance at a certain level will result in achieving rewards; and finally, valence, and how desirable each of those outcomes, rewards available from a job or organization is to the person, right? So they need to expect in this theory that their effort will increase performance, that performance will link to some sort of reward, and those rewards will satisfy your personal goals. This example of expectancy theory, kind of like if you think something, you will achieve it, right? Once you think it and believe it, it will become true. So am I motivated to achieve an A+ in this course? No, not really, right? So what's the expectancy here? Effort is linked to performance. No matter how much I study, I will never achieve an A+ in this course. So you have a low expectancy level, right? Instrumentality, performance is linked to rewards. Professor does not often give an A plus, right? So you don't really feel like maybe it's worth the effort. And Valence is the last one, rewards linked to personal goals. I only need to pass the course in order to graduate. Why do you even need to work hard enough to try to get an A, right? So there's a great breakdown of how the expectancy theory works in practice. I love that they used a school example for that one, studying. Here's the opposite. Am I motivated to achieve an A plus in this course? Yes. Yes, I am. So now, if I study hard, I will achieve that A plus. You have a high level of expectancy. Instrumentality, the professor will give me an A plus if I achieve 90, right? So now you have a high level of instrumentality, and then Valence, rewards linked to personal goals. I really need to get an A plus to graduate with honors. So that gives you an example of having a negative expectation or positive expectation and how you move down the various levels of the expectancy theory. Again, these are great examples. How managers can apply this expectancy theory. So you can increase the expectancy level by providing people with proper training, like they believe that they can achieve something. Increase instrumentality levels by keeping their word and being transparent about the distribution of rewards. I will train you and then I'll reward you if you do well, and then increase Valence by individualizing outcomes and rewards, right? Making sure that that outcome or reward meets people's expectations. They're going to be rewarded in a way that they expect. So this is the second process theory, the equity theory. And the equity theory argues that it really concentrates on workers' perceptions of fairness of work and the outcome, right, in proportion to their inputs. Motivation is influenced by comparison to one's own output. The ratio in which the outcome to ratio is the second person's referent. So what that means is I need to know that my input is going to give me an output that is acceptable, right? And the idea of equity is that justice, impartiality, and fairness to which all organizational members are entitled. Everyone is treated equally. So the idea, if I show up, I work hard, I'm going to get fair compensation for that work that I do. And exists when a person perceives that their output-input ratio to be equal, right? So whatever they're putting in, they're getting out of the job. You don't want to work a job for 80 hours a week for very little pay and very little recognition, but if you knew that if you put in all those hours, the rewards would be tremendous, you might think that that is an equitable exchange. Example of the equity theory in practice. So perceived condition equity. If you look at the example, an engineer perceives that he contributes the same inputs, time, and effort and receives the same outcomes as other people, right? So he feels really good about his job. The underpayment inequity is an engineer perceives that his input, his time and effort, does not receive the same amount of output as somebody else. And then the last could be the other way. An engineer perceives that he contributes the same inputs, time and effort, but receives a better output, better reward. So there's an example of equity theory. People want to feel like they are being treated equally, right? That they're not putting in more effort and getting paid less. But I don't think people would have a problem with the overpayment inequity, right? Where you think you put in the same effort, but somehow you're rewarded more. People don't often complain about that situation. So inequity is a lack of fairness, right? It exists when a person's outcome input ratio is not perceived to be equal. And there's two types, and we went through these in the examples in the previous slide. Underpayment inequity, person perceives that their own output ratio is perceived to be less than the referent. And then the second one is the overpayment inequity, person perceives that their own output input ratio is greater than the referent. So basically, you're using someone that you work with kind of as the basis, right? The reference. And if you're putting in more time and effort and getting paid less, there's a problem. But like I said, the other way around, people don't normally complain. Possible actions taken to restore equity. So these are some steps as a manager If people are perceiving there's inequity in the workplace, these are some things you can do. In the idea of underpayment equity, you can maybe change the perception of one's own inputs and outputs, reduce their inputs, increase their outputs, change the person that they're comparing themselves to, or quit. If you feel like you're in the overpayment equity category, you can again change the perception, change the person that you're referring to or you're comparing yourself to. And then the last one, if they feel like it's equitable, you can continue contributing at the same levels, and the inputs and outputs will remain the same, right? There's no change that would be made in that situation because you don't have to. Things are considered equal. And this raises the question, how many organizations do 100% of the people always feel like things are equitable? I almost feel like this type of equity situation is something that goes on in every organization. It's hard to have everyone feel like they are being treated exactly the same as everybody else. Okay, goal setting theory, the final processing theory. Goal setting theory focuses on identifying types of goals most effective in producing high levels of motivation and performance. It also explains why goals have these effects. Goals must be specific and difficult, and managers should encourage workers to develop their own action plans. Turn the impossible to possible. Management by objectives. Management by objectives, formal systems of evaluating subordinates on the ability to achieve specific organizational goals or performance standards. There's 3 steps. These specific goals and objectives are established at each level of the organization. Managers and subordinates together determine the subordinates' goals, and managers and their subordinates periodically review the process towards meeting those goals. Okay, learning theories, the last category in theories, right? We had needs theories, we had process theories, and finally, the third category, learning theories. How do these apply in the context of motivation? So, learning theories focus on increasing employees' motivation and performance by linking the outcomes that the employees receive to the performance of the desired behaviors and the attainment of goals. Learning, relatively permanent change in a person's knowledge or behavior that results from practice or experience. There's several learning theories. We're going to talk about 2: operant conditional theory, conditioning theory, and social learning theory. Let's jump in so you can learn about the learning theories. Okay, so operant conditional theory. These theories are also referred to as reinforcement theories, and it's when people learn to perform behaviors that lead to desired outcomes and learn not to perform behaviors that lead to undesired outcomes, right? You learn, it's like the carrot and stick. You learn when to get the carrot and how to avoid the stick. There's 4 tools managers can use to motivate people. First of all, positive reinforcement. Give people outcomes they desire when they perform well. Someone does something well, give them some money. Maybe have an ice cream truck show up to work, pat them on the back. Negative reinforcement, eliminating undesired outcomes once people have performed organizational function behaviors, right? So if you have an undesired outcome, maybe the ice cream truck doesn't show up on Friday because you didn't meet your sales quota. Extinction theory, stopping the performance of dysfunctional behaviors by eliminating whatever is reinforcing it. And then finally, punishment, the stick, administering an undesired consequence when dysfunctional behavior occurs. Social learning theory. Motivation results not only from direct experiences or rewards and punishments, but also from a person's thoughts or beliefs. How do you influence what people think and what they believe? So this is really an extension of operant conditional theory, right? Because what you're doing is you're allowing people to really understand what is causing the various rewards or punishments, right? There's a learning. The motivation is somehow sinking in. They learn how to get what they want. And the first one is vicarious learning or observational learning. Learner becomes motivated to perform behavior by watching another perform, right? So You watch someone else meet their sales quota, they get the big bonus. Great, I want to get the bonus, right? So you're learning the behavior by watching other people do it. Self-reinforcement, learner sets goals for themselves and then reinforces them when they achieve them. Right, you sit down, you say, these are the sales I want to make, these are the quotas I want to reach, and then you do them and you have a positive outcome. And the last one is self-efficacy and a person's belief about their own ability to perform a successful behavior, right? You actually believe that you can show up and do what the required work is every day. Total reward strategy. Now, this encompasses both intrinsically and extrinsically motivating factors, such as giving positive reinforcement and recognition, career development opportunities, right? You're doing well, I'm going to send you to training, employee development and training, base pay and merit increases, individual benefits, non-financial recognition. Employee recognition programs, management expressions of interest, approval, and appreciation for a job well done. Reward people who do well, right? Pretty simple. Pay and motivation. A part of the total reward strategies, managers can also use pay to motivate employees. Pay is important extrinsically, right? Because it addresses both needs and process theories. Both of those things we've talked about. Pay can satisfy the needs theories. They can help you feel that you're equal. They can contribute to your learning because your pay should be contingent and appropriate to performance. And then it helps you achieve your goals, right? These are ways that pay helps motivate people on different levels, more than just allowing them to go to the store and buy milk and bread. Variable play plans. Variable play plans. I think it is safe to say that that is a typo. It should say variable pay plans. So managers can base merit pay on individual, group, organizational behaviors or performance. Merit pay plans or variable pay programs, compensation plans that bases pay on performance, distributed via salary increases or bonuses or a top up on regular salaries, and employee stock options. Like some people in some organizations will receive stock options as opposed to, an extra $50 a week or something. And those are financial instruments that entitle the bearer to buy stock, part of the organization, at a certain price during a time period and under certain conditions. And that can be worth a lot if the company is worth a lot, or it can be worth very little. Okay, we have made it to the end. This is, again, what you should have learned during our time together. The first one is the nature of motivation. Managers strive to motivate employees to contribute their inputs to an organization, to focus these inputs in the direction of high performance, and to ensure that people receive the outcomes they desire when they perform at a high level. People are motivated to work extrinsically to acquire material rewards and avoid punishment intrinsically for its own sake and prosocially for others. The needs theories suggest that to motivate their workers, managers should determine what the needs are of their employees and try to help satisfy those needs at the highest level. And managers can design jobs with those 5 core dimensions in mind to make them more interesting and motivating. The process theories help managers explain why people act the way they do, and thus help managers understand the roots of high and low performance. And then finally, these learning theories help managers see the link between giving rewards for high performance behavior and repetition of that behavior amongst employees. And finally, the last one, total reward theory. Each of the motivational theories discussed in this chapter alludes to the importance of pay and suggests that pay should be based on performance. Pay is only one part of the total reward strategy, which includes both extrinsic elements and intrinsic elements. So make sure that you recognize that it encompasses both. So that was a very quick overview of motivation. There are a number of theories that you are responsible for knowing in this chapter. So like I said at the beginning, make sure you open your book, take out your highlighter, take some notes, because you are going to be responsible for all of these details. If you have any questions about any of this information, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask, and have yourself a great rest of the day.